Let's talk about something real. Living alone as a woman is both a superpower and a challenge. You have total freedom. Your space, your rules, your snacks. No one stealing your fries or using your expensive shampoo like it's dish soap. Sounds perfect, right? But here's the truth. Living alone can either make you a self-sufficient, confident powerhouse, or it can slowly turn into watching Netflix in pajamas for 3 days straight, while convincing yourself that cereal counts as a balanced meal. No judgment. We've all been there. Without a boyfriend, there's no one to remind you to set goals, challenge you, or even point out that you've been talking to your plants a little too much lately. Your habits, your routines, they follow you everywhere. There's no one else to break them. So what you do with your solitude is 100% up to you. So, the question isn't whether a woman can live alone. Of course, she can. The real question is, does she thrive in that independence, or does she just survive? Let's dive in and find out. You might think, I don't need anyone. I'm independent. I take care of myself. And yes, independence is empowering. But let's be clear. Living alone isn't the same as being strong. True strength comes from engagement with the world, from taking on responsibilities, from growing through interactions with others. Without that, independence can quietly turn into isolation. You can trick yourself into believing that you're content in solitude. You wake up when you want, eat what you like, and spend your time however you choose. At first, it feels like control, like independence. But slowly, something shifts. Days turn into weeks, and then months. The silence, once comforting, becomes a presence of its own. Without realizing it, isolation creeps in. There's no external voice to challenge your thoughts, no spontaneous conversations to break the monotony, no daily interactions that push you beyond yourself. What once felt like a sanctuary begins to feel like confinement. You become more withdrawn, more disconnected. The world moves on, but you're standing still. Then the real question emerges: what happens next? Because solitude can either be a tool for growth or a slow descent into stagnation. Without purpose, energy fades. Without structure, motivation crumbles. Without connection, even the strongest person starts to feel invisible. The danger of isolation isn't its presence, it's how quietly it takes hold, how subtly it convinces you that nothing is wrong, until one day you look around and realize you're not really living, just existing. And existence alone was never the goal. Living alone without a partner is one of life's great paradoxes. On one hand, it grants a woman complete freedom, the ability to structure her days as she pleases, pursue her passions without compromise, and live unbound by the expectations or needs of others. There is a certain allure in this autonomy, in having full control over her life without external constraints. She can wake up whenever she wants, eat whatever she desires, dedicate all her time to personal growth, career ambitions, and self-care, without adjusting for anyone else. For many women, especially those who have experienced difficult or unfulfilling relationships, solitude initially feels like a form of liberation, a chance to fully invest in themselves without distractions. But beneath the surface of independence lies a deeper reality, one that only reveals itself after prolonged isolation. Freedom comes with responsibility, and that responsibility extends beyond maintaining a stable life. It includes managing emotional and mental well-being. When a woman lives alone, she is solely responsible for how she navigates her inner world. There is no one to regulate her emotions, no daily interactions to provide warmth and connection, no casual conversations that subtly pull her out of her own thoughts. It is entirely up to her to maintain her sense of purpose, to keep herself motivated, and to stay engaged with the world. And this is where solitude, once empowering, can quietly become dangerous. For some women, solitude can be a catalyst for discipline and self-sufficiency. They use this time to grow, refine their skills, expand their knowledge, and build a strong mindset to navigate life. They learn to manage their emotions without relying on validation from others, take responsibility for their failures, and gradually become women who can stand firm without needing anyone beside them. This is the ideal outcome, the path to a fulfilling and independent life. But not everyone follows that path. Many women, instead of using solitude as a tool for growth, unknowingly slip into stagnation. Without external motivation, without someone to challenge them, their days become a monotonous cycle. Work, eating, watching shows, scrolling through social media, it all turns into an endless loop. The absence of deep conversations, the lack of someone to share thoughts with, the missing challenge to their perspective, all create a growing detachment from the outside world, while their inner world becomes increasingly closed off. There is a deceptive comfort in isolation. A woman who lives alone avoids conflicts, emotional turmoil, and the responsibilities of a relationship. But in doing so, she also loses the very challenges that sharpen her character and add depth to life. Humans are social beings, and no matter how strong, no one is entirely immune to the psychological effects of prolonged loneliness. Over time, solitude can dull passions and ambitions. A woman might continue her daily habits, working, exercising, taking care of herself, but without anyone to share meaningful moments with. The absence of stimulating conversations, shared laughter, or words of encouragement slowly closes her off. One day she realizes an unsettling truth. The silence that once felt peaceful has become a burden. What once brought freedom now comes at a cost. No one is there to regulate emotions, to remind her she matters, to push her beyond her comfort zone. Living alone means taking full responsibility for maintaining motivation, emotional balance, and connection with the world. And this is where solitude becomes a double-edged sword. It can make a woman stronger, or it can gradually lead her into an existence that feels empty. The weight of solitude isn't just about the absence of a romantic partner, it's about being the one to keep her own fire burning. How does she maintain motivation without external encouragement? How does she find joy in the little moments when there's no one to share them with? How does she keep her mind open and engaged rather than retreating into her own thoughts? Some women embrace this challenge and become stronger because of it. They build a life they are proud of, maintain discipline, nurture social connections, and continue to explore new opportunities. But others slowly lose their spark, letting solitude take over their minds and dim their sense of purpose. Solitude can become the foundation for discipline and self-reliance. When there is no partner to provide emotional support or share responsibilities, she must create order and structure in her life entirely on her own. This is both a challenge and an opportunity, a test of whether she can establish the necessary principles for personal growth or allow life to drift into stagnation. Without discipline, solitude quickly turns into a cycle of passivity, gradually eroding motivation and purpose over time. A woman who lives alone has no one to remind her of her dreams, no one to push her out of bed in the morning, no one to encourage or reinforce good habits. She must be the one to set the standard for herself, to be her own source of motivation. This requires a strong mindset to resist the comforts of laziness, procrastination, and distractions. It's easy to let time slip away when there's no one waiting, no one depending on her, no one urging her to move forward. A day without structure easily turns into a week without purpose, and before she knows it, months have passed without real progress. Discipline isn't about rigid control or self-imposed restrictions. It's about the ability to make the right choices, even when no one is watching. A self-reliant woman doesn't just wake up with a checklist. She builds a meaningful life. She must train herself to wake up with intention, set long-term goals, and pursue them with perseverance. She cannot let fleeting emotions or momentary distractions dictate her actions, because in solitude, no one will correct her if she goes off course. Without discipline, good habits start to fade. Sleep schedules become inconsistent, diet choices deteriorate, physical health weakens, and mental clarity diminishes. A woman may convince herself that she's simply enjoying her freedom, but in reality, she's letting her potential slip away. But discipline isn't just about daily habits, it's also about controlling thoughts and emotions. Without someone to share joys and sorrows with, she must learn to confront herself. She must sit with her thoughts, overcome self-doubt, and avoid sinking into uncontrolled emotions. Without discipline, it's easy to retreat into isolation, allowing loneliness, anxiety, and self-doubt to take over. When a woman commits to discipline, she builds confidence. She proves to herself that she can take control of her life, that she can create structure even when no one is holding her accountable. This is the most important thing, because in solitude, the relationship with oneself is everything. If she allows herself to become indifferent, to neglect her goals, to fall into laziness and apathy, she will lose trust in her own abilities. But if she maintains discipline, challenges herself, and commits to self-improvement, she will develop an unshakable foundation of self-respect. Discipline isn't a burden. It's a necessity for survival. It keeps the mind sharp, the body strong, and the purpose clear. Without it, solitude doesn't lead to independence. It leads to being lost. Solitude, when used wisely, can be a powerful tool for self-reflection and growth. It allows a woman to step away from distractions, analyze her life, refine her thoughts, and cultivate independence. Some of the greatest minds in history have embraced solitude as a means to gain clarity and strength. But there is a fine line between productive solitude and harmful isolation. When that line is crossed, solitude no longer empowers, it confines. What once was a time for reflection can gradually turn into stagnation, detachment, and a growing sense of disconnection from the world. A woman may begin to feel isolated, as though she no longer belongs to anything beyond herself. And if she lacks the discipline to pull herself out of that state, she risks being consumed by a void of emptiness. So the freedom she enjoys while living alone isn't the only answer. True freedom isn't about avoiding responsibility. It's about mastering oneself. Real independence isn't just about not being tied to someone else. It's about having the ability to control and direct her own life. At first, isolation may not seem dangerous. In fact, it can even feel liberating. A woman starts spending more time with herself, prioritizing personal projects, enjoying the freedom of not being tied down by social obligations. She tells herself that she's just focusing on her career, taking care of herself, and doesn't need constant interaction to feel fulfilled. On the surface, there's an undeniable appeal to living in her own world, untouched by external influences. But the problem begins when solitude slowly becomes the default state rather than a temporary retreat. The longer a woman isolates herself, the more distorted her perception of life becomes. One of the first signs of unhealthy isolation is stagnation. Without deep conversations, without someone to challenge her thoughts or introduce new perspectives, her thinking starts to become repetitive. She still works, still maintains her daily habits, but lacks the motivation to push beyond her comfort zone. With no one to encourage her, no new experiences, no external pressure, she slowly falls into a state of prolonged stillness. Initially, she may convince herself that she is simply enjoying peace, but over time, life becomes too comfortable. And comfort in isolation can easily turn into stagnation. Beyond stagnation, prolonged isolation weakens a woman's ability to connect. Women are emotional beings, deeply wired for connection, and no matter how strong she is not immune to the psychological effects of prolonged solitude. When a woman isolates herself for too long, she starts feeling detached from the world around her. Social skills, such as how to navigate conversations, interpret body language, or simply feel at ease around others, require constant practice. Without exposure to social interactions, these skills start to fade. She might become increasingly comfortable with silence, but at the same time, feel uncertain about how to engage in meaningful connections again. Gradually, she realizes that solitude is no longer a choice but a state she is trapped in. She starts viewing herself through a distorted lens, either becoming overly critical, magnifying her flaws without external reassurance, or developing a false sense of confidence that remains untested in real-world interactions. Either way, isolation warps her self-perception, making it increasingly difficult to reintegrate into a social life. And then one day, she realizes that the room she once saw as a sanctuary now feels like a cage, and the freedom she once cherished has turned into a burden. At first, isolation may seem harmless, even comforting. A woman might spend more time alone, prioritizing personal projects, enjoying the freedom of not being tied down by social obligations. She tells herself that she's simply focusing on her career, self-improvement, and that she doesn't need constant interaction to feel fulfilled. The silence in her apartment feels like control. No interruptions, no demands. But the problem begins when solitude is no longer a conscious choice, but becomes the default state. The longer a woman stays disconnected, the more distorted her perception of herself becomes. One of the first signs of unhealthy isolation is stagnation. Without someone to share thoughts with, to challenge perspectives, or even to have casual conversations with, the world outside starts feeling distant, while the world inside her mind becomes smaller. Ambition can begin to fade without external encouragement. When there is no force pushing her forward, she easily falls into repetitive routines without real growth. Days blur into one another. Work, eat, watch TV, scroll through social media, sleep, repeat. Without external stimulation, her thoughts start looping, her perspective narrows, and one day, she realizes something unsettling. The silence that once felt peaceful has become suffocating. What once felt like freedom now carries an unseen cost. No one is there to help regulate emotions, remind her of her worth, or pull her out of her comfort zone. Living alone means the full responsibility of maintaining motivation, emotional balance, and connection to the world falls entirely on her. This is where solitude becomes a double-edged sword. It can either make a woman stronger, or it can slowly erode her sense of purpose. The burden of isolation isn't just the absence of companionship, it's the responsibility of keeping one's inner fire alive. How does she continue to stay motivated when no one else is cheering her on? How does she find joy in small moments when there's no one to share them with? How does she keep her mind open and engaged instead of getting lost in her own thoughts? Some women accept this challenge and use solitude as a time for personal growth, self-discipline, and expansion of social connections. They structure their lives intentionally, seek new experiences, and continue pushing themselves to learn and evolve. But others, without realizing it, allow isolation to take over, dulling their sense of joy and chipping away at their drive to engage with the world. Human beings are inherently social creatures, and no woman, no matter how independent or self-sufficient, can truly thrive in complete isolation. While solitude can be valuable for self-reflection and personal growth, prolonged separation from meaningful social interactions leads to loneliness, stagnation, and even a loss of purpose. A woman without a romantic partner must not mistake being alone for being disconnected. She must actively engage with the world, build meaningful relationships, and cultivate a sense of belonging within her community. Without strong social bonds, she risks falling into a void where her sense of purpose and identity slowly begins to erode. Friendships serve as one of the most essential pillars of a woman's social well-being. A strong circle of friends provides companionship, support, and accountability. Through shared experiences, challenges, and deep conversations, friendships offer a source of motivation and perspective that cannot be found in isolation. Women uplift each other through encouragement, honesty, and a shared understanding of life's complexities. A woman who surrounds herself with good friends is less likely to fall into self-destructive habits or allow complacency to take root. Her friends challenge her, inspire her, and remind her of her worth when she begins to doubt herself. But friendships do not maintain themselves. They require effort. A woman must take the initiative to reach out, organize gatherings, and be present in the lives of those she values. Passively waiting for social interactions to happen only leads to further isolation. Many women who live alone unintentionally withdraw from friendships over time, convincing themselves that solitude is easier. But in reality, meaningful connections require intention and effort. Beyond friendships, mentorship plays a crucial role in a woman's personal and professional development. Without a romantic partner, a woman must be even more intentional about seeking guidance from those who have walked the path before her. A mentor, whether in career, personal growth, fitness, or any other area, offers wisdom, perspective, and a level of accountability that is difficult to cultivate alone. A mentor helps a woman refine her thinking, avoid common pitfalls, and accelerate her growth. Too many women attempt to navigate life without seeking counsel, believing they must figure everything out on their own. But wisdom is often borrowed before it is earned, and a woman who isolates herself from those who can teach her is bound to repeat avoidable mistakes. Finding mentors requires humility and effort. A woman must put herself in environments where experienced individuals gather, whether in professional networks, community organizations, or intellectual circles. She must be willing to listen more than she speaks and apply the lessons she learns. Community is another essential component of a woman's social foundation. Even if she does not have a romantic partner, she must still belong to something greater than herself. Whether it is a professional network, a creative group, a volunteer organization, or a spiritual community, being part of something larger reinforces a sense of purpose. It reminds a woman that her actions matter, that she has something to contribute, and that she is not navigating life alone. A woman who actively engages with her community gains both practical and emotional benefits. She expands her network, finds new opportunities, and experiences the fulfillment of contributing to a shared mission. The danger of neglecting social bonds is not just loneliness. It is the slow erosion of meaning. When a woman withdraws too far from the world, her sense of self begins to fade. She may convince herself that relationships are unnecessary, that she is better off alone, that the world has nothing to offer her. But this mindset is a quiet descent into apathy. A woman without strong social connections is far more susceptible to anxiety, depression, and destructive habits. She becomes trapped in her own mind, lacking the external perspectives that keep thoughts and emotions balanced. Over time, this can lead to a loss of motivation and an increasing sense of detachment from life itself. Maintaining social bonds requires effort, but the rewards are immeasurable. A woman who cultivates friendships, seeks mentors, and engages with her community builds a foundation that sustains her through life's inevitable challenges. She has people to turn to in times of hardship, people to celebrate with in moments of success, and a sense of connection that brings depth and meaning to her life. Life without meaningful relationships is a life only half lived. A woman must make a choice. Either she builds a life where she thrives in solitude, or she shapes herself into someone capable of forming deep and meaningful connections. Both paths require effort, discipline, and a profound sense of purpose. There is no room for passivity, no waiting for circumstances to improve on their own, no drifting through life hoping that fulfillment will arrive uninvited. A woman must take full responsibility for her existence, shaping herself into someone worthy of respect. both from herself and from others, whether she walks alone or alongside a partner. If a woman chooses to live alone, she must ensure that her solitude is not an escape from responsibility, but a foundation for strength. Being independent does not only mean financial stability or managing daily life. It means the ability to create meaning and purpose without external validation. A truly strong woman does not retreat into comfort, but continues to explore, learn, and grow. But solitude should not turn into isolation. Even without a romantic relationship, a woman still needs deep and meaningful social connections. Friendships, mentorship, and community. These are essential to her emotional and mental well-being. She must make the effort to engage with the world, to challenge her perspectives through conversations with others, and to contribute to something greater than herself. Without these connections, solitude can become a slippery slope, leading to detachment and a lack of purpose. A woman who chooses to be alone must ensure that she is truly living, not just existing in comfortable numbness. If a woman chooses to build a life with meaningful relationships, she must understand that relationships are not simply given, they are earned. A fulfilling relationship does not just happen. It is created through effort, self-improvement, and becoming the kind of woman who naturally attracts deep and lasting connections. This does not mean performing or pretending to be someone she is not. It means genuinely cultivating the qualities that make her strong, reliable, and worthy of respect. Confidence, discipline, emotional intelligence, ambition. These are qualities that naturally draw others in, not through manipulation, but through inherent value. A woman who wants a meaningful relationship must first confront her weaknesses. If she lacks confidence, she must address the root of her insecurities. If she lacks discipline, she must build habits that make her stronger. If she carries emotional wounds from the past, she must heal before she can truly connect with someone else. Simply desiring a meaningful relationship is not enough. A woman must become the kind of person who naturally fits into one. Regardless of which path she chooses, the core principles remain the same. A woman must have purpose, a reason to wake up each morning beyond fleeting pleasures or daily obligations. She must have self-respect, built through discipline and effort, so she does not compromise her integrity for the sake of comfort. And she must embrace continuous growth, because stagnation only leads to regret. Whether she walks alone or alongside a partner, her journey is one of constant refinement. There is no standing still. She is either moving forward or losing herself. The road ahead may not be easy, but it is clear. A woman must take responsibility for her own existence, shaping herself into someone who thrives in any circumstance. Whether she remains alone or finds companionship, she must ensure that her life has meaning, depth, and is built on self-respect. Life does not hand out meaning freely, it must be forged. And a woman who understands this will never feel lost. The real question isn't whether you're alone or not. It's whether you're truly thriving or just going through the motions. Does your independence come with growth, joy, and meaningful connections? Are you leveling up, stepping out into the world, and building relationships? Or are you just curled up under a blanket with yesterday's cold coffee? Whether you embrace solitude or seek deep connection, one thing is clear. Life is meant to be lived. So go all in, love yourself fiercely, and most importantly, never let your fridge be empty, because no one can be strong when they're hungry.